Hi, my name is David Reagan, Grech RV. Let me give you a walk around of the Strada tour. First thing I want to point out is the very clean stainless appliques that we have on the side of the vehicle. Nice Grech logo right in the middle of it. That applies over the top of the factory OE painted moldings that we put on. Turn signal cameras in the mirrors on the Stradas, so whenever you turn your turn signals on, it's going to give you a nice view of the side of the vehicle down the side just for safety. So that is on the right and on the left hand side of the vehicle. And then on the front side of the vehicle, we add the lower valance on the front bumper. That's all fiberglass, painted bumper, painted lower fiberglass skirting. Turn signal camera once again on the driver's side mirror. The lower entrance step that we install with the stainless steel support bracket underneath. Open up the driver's door. Behind this panel is where you're going to access your fuel fill for your engine. Okay, now on the side of the Strada here, we have our access panel for our shore power and our waste dumping station down here. So on the shore power, I want to point out that the shore power 30 amp cord goes here in this location. This is the door that you can open up and attach your shore power cord to it. This does have a latch in the bottom of here, so don't try to just pull it out on the bottom. It's going to be very difficult to do that. Go ahead and squeeze each side of this cover just gently and it'll release the latch and then it'll pull open very easily. So squeeze it and it'll pull right open. Once you have it open, that'll access where your cord goes in. That cord is your 30 amp service cord right here. Plug in your 30 amp service cord and then just give it a slight twist clockwise and that'll lock the cord in right there. There's also a safety lock ring that you can screw right onto there as well. So that will lock in your shore power cord. Easy access. Once you have your shore power cord installed, make sure you select the proper input selection on the Firefly screen. You have a 15 amp selection on your shore power, a 20 amp selection on your shore power, or a 30 amp selection on your shore power. Make sure that you have that selection correct for the shore power you are plugged into, what service you're plugged into at that point. That way the EMS loads and the management system in this Firefly system works properly. Next to your shore power inlet cord is your control panel for your dumping station. So you have a black tank valve switch right here. These are electrically controlled valves, and you have a black valve right here, a gray valve right here, and then next to that is your macerator pump. So this pump is going to be the pump that's actually grinding up all the debris that's in the system and pumping it out of your waste hose. Then you have a waste hose retracting switch next to that. That is the switch that you're going to be pushing to retract your hose once you're done doing your dump. So if you're at a dump station, the first thing that you'd want to do is access the lower compartment here. That's where your sewer outlet hose is. This is an electrically retracted hose system here, but it's manually pulled out. So manually pull it out and go to your dump station outlet there, or inlet for your dump station. There's an adapter that's going to go on the end of here. Insert that down into the dump and open your valve here. Once you open this valve up, then you can turn on your valve for your black tank and open that up. Once you open that valve up, the light is going to flash on the screen here to indicate that the valve is actually open. Once you have the valve open, then you can turn your macerator pump on. This will pump the debris out of the black tank. Once the black tank is empty and it's not continually flowing fluid through the hose any longer here, go ahead and turn the pump off. Once you're done there, then you can open up your gray tank. Once you open your gray tank, that light will be flashing as well. And then you can turn your pump back on and pump out all the water out of the gray tank. Once that's done, turn your pump back off. You can retract your hose at that point. Go ahead and guide the hose in with your hand back and forth a little bit. That will help it to not bind up on the hose reel as it's going in. Simply push the button and guide it in as it goes. And once it goes all the way in, release the switch and it's already back into that position. Go ahead and close your valves at that point, and the light will go out when the valve is closed, and then you're good for traveling again. Next to that control panel for your waste system is your outside shower assembly. You have a cold and a hot valve there, just like a normal house faucet. You can locate your hose assembly here. This hose assembly connects with a quick disconnect right in the middle. Go ahead and just push the ring back on the center. Insert your hose into that position and let the ring go. It'll secure that hose into position. You can use your sprayer, hose off your feet, whatever you want to do there. Once you're all done, you can shut your valves off. To release that, push the ring straight back in again, and it'll release that, and then you can put this back into storage. That simple. Next to your city water connection is your fresh water fill. So this is where you're going to use clean, fresh, potable water. This actually will fill your holding tank that you're going to be using when you're dry camping or boondocking. This is when you're going to be using your water pump actually to pump water out of your holding tank and use that water in the interior of the vehicle. Once you're dumping both of your tanks here, go ahead and turn your pump off and make sure that your hose is still out and hooked up to your sewer. And if you want, every like 5 to 10 times of your black tank dump, you can hook up your hose to this sprayer location right here. So when you hook your hose up to the sprayer location, what this is going to do is this is going to wash out the black tank on the interior of the black tank. So be cautious though to make sure that you're only running this for maybe 10 to 15 seconds on the hose on the sprayer in this position, and make sure that your valves are actually open, okay? Because we don't want to have that hose fill up that black tank and actually overflow inside of that bathroom area. Make sure, like I said, 10 to 15 seconds on the sprayer on the black tank, and make sure that the valves are open, and then shut your hose back off. You can disconnect it here. Once you're done doing that spray out, then you can turn the pump back on again and spray and pump out the rest of what the sprayer just did. It went into your holding tanks and go that down into your sewer. Once you're done with that, then you can close your valves up here, close the valve on the end of the hose reel here, and then retract your hose. So we'll do that right now. We're going to go ahead and shut these valves off. So those valves are closed now because the lights are not flashing, and then your pump is off. Obviously, don't run the pump dry. Whenever this pump starts running dry, go ahead and turn it off. You don't want to run it dry, it may do damage to it. And then once you're done, go ahead and push your retract button here. That will retract the hose in. You may want to help guide the hose in back and forth on the rollers a little bit. That'll help it so it doesn't bind as it retracts in. So go ahead and guide the hose in as it goes in, and push the switch and it'll go right back in. Once it retracts in all the way, go ahead and let the switch go, and that's set. Go ahead and close your doors up and lock them as you go and before you travel, obviously. And you can close this if you're done, and you can disconnect your shore power cord and close it for traveling as well and lock it up. On the side of the unit as well, below your shore power compartment, is your exhaust for your Timberline heater system. So make sure whenever you have your shore power cord hooked up to the unit that it is not in direct line of that exhaust pipe. It will do damage to this hose or this cord, excuse me, if that is in the case. So make sure whenever you're plugged in that this cord is not in direct line to that exhaust system there in that location. Once we go back to the back behind the rear tire here, you're going to see your exhaust for your generator, if so equipped. So generator units have an exhaust here. This is a propane generator, so it works on propane. And if you have a lithium unit, you're not going to have an exhaust here because you do not have a generator on board. Okay, so now we are here on the back of the Strada, and I want to show you what's in the back of the area here on a Strada on a generator unit. So on a lithium unit, you're going to have a few different things back here, and we'll show you that on the next segment when we show you ion unit. But as far as a generator unit, they are equipped with a 2,000 watt Xantrex inverter charger, and they are mounted on the sidewall here. That is a charger and inverter, so when you're plugged into shore power, like I said, it's going to switch it over into a battery charger, and it will charge your batteries that are on board whenever you're plugged into shore power. If we lift this drape up here, you're going to see that there's a compartment underneath this back couch. Open up the compartment door, and in this area is where you're going to find your service disconnect for your inverter. So this service disconnect in here is only going to turn power off to the inverter. This does not shut your batteries down, and it does not turn off the interior power of the coach. This only is a service disconnect for the inverter. So if you have the service disconnect in the off position, whenever you're plugged into shore power, it's not going to charge your batteries. Or if you have that service disconnect in the off position, whenever you try to turn on your inverter from the Firefly touchscreen, it's not going to work. So make sure that that service disconnect is in the on position. There's no reason to turn it off unless we need to do a reboot of your inverter. And also, this is not a storage compartment, so don't store anything in this compartment, okay? Also on the back of the Strada, we have a shade and a screen. These are electrically controlled through the Firefly system. Do not pull these down by hand because you will do damage to them. So just remember, these are operated through the Firefly app or through the Firefly touchscreen only. Okay, here we are in the passenger rear corner of this Strada. This Strada is equipped with a propane system. So behind this door on this propane equipped Strada is where you're going to find your propane fill location here, your exterior remote barbecue outlet right here, so you can hook it up to a remote barbecue if you like. Also pay attention that there's a switch in this location that is a safety shutoff switch for your propane system. So if the switch is not on, your propane system is not going to be operating. So you will have no generator, you'll have no cooktop, and you'll have no barbecue outlet here that's operating if the switch is not on. Next to it is a outlet for a TV. So this is a cable outlet for your TV antenna or your park cable outlet right here. So if you're plugged into park cable, this will operate. Also, next to that is a 110 volt outlet for your television or something that you may want to work on the exterior for 110 volts. Okay, now let me take you inside and show you the two different interior options that are available on the Strada. Now that I've shown you all the exterior features of the Strada, let me show you the interior of this Strada tour. On the end of the galley cabinet, you will find the Firefly touchscreen and the battery switch that controls all your house power, and the step override switch, which disables a step whenever you are camping. So the step is not going in and out as you open and close the door. On the tour model, you will notice that it has a larger cabinetry on the driver's side. You have a nice closet here, which gives you a hanging bar, the storage for your Lagoon Table, and some nice shelving below there. You also have a refrigerator that's much larger on the touring model with a freezer on the top, and also a nice drawer underneath here for drinks, so you're not having to open up the main part of the refrigerator to get drinks out of there. So very nice feature. You're going to have a much larger galley cabinet in here. You still have the farm style stainless sink with the sink cover and the pull out stainless sprayer faucet, so you can hose out and spray out whatever you may have in your sink. Also, this is very nice for a backsplash. You can use it as a backsplash in this location, or you can use it for just a larger area for prepping whenever you're doing prepping for cooking. This particular model we are in now is a propane model with a generator, and on the propane models you're going to get a LP cooktop in these models with the propane. So if you have an ion unit, this is not going to be a propane cooktop. It's going to actually be an induction cooktop. We will show you that on the other model as well. On the larger Galley cabinet, you have on the tour, you have these nice cabinets down here. They have a lot of storage space in here for big pots and pans and whatever else you may want to put in there. Also, I like that we have this feature as well, that you have this little pull-out tray right here for your sponges or your whatever you need for your sink and stuff like that. So we try to utilize as much space as we can on these models. Also, a nice drawer right here, nice deep drawer that you can put things in, utensils or whatnot. And on all of our models, air fryer, microwave, convection oven. Very, very nice. Also on this larger cabinet, we have drawers under here, two nice sized drawers with mechanical latches, so these are not going to be opening and closing as you're driving down the road. And another nice surface area for prepping on this larger Galley cabinet on the touring model. Let me show you these overhead cabinets. Very, very nice spring hinges, well built cabinetry on the upper end here. Nice storage space, nice and clean and finished off on the interiors. Also, cabinet lighting on the interior of the cabinets. Very, very nice to be able to see what's in these cabinets. You can turn this lighting on and off, of course, from the Firefly touchscreen. Let's show you what's in the bathroom. Do you want to clip and go and move? I don't know if you want to just kind of hit this. On all Grech RVs, there is a fiberglass bathroom housing that is totally waterproof. We also have a ceramic toilet and a waterproof toilet paper roll dispenser. And then you'll come up here to our nice formed sink that's very, very good size, and the hot and cold water faucet, and it pulls out. Pull this out, and that is where you come up and lock it on to the bracket there for your shower. And once you're done, you can actually use this as a sprayer, or once you're done, you can just put it back into the holder right there. Also incorporated into the bathroom is a clothesline hanger. So you have a very, very nice convenient clothesline hanger for the interior of your bathroom. You simply just pull and release the stop and pull the cable out and hook it up to the bracket on the other side, and that will allow you to hang clothing and dry towels or whatever inside your bathroom area there as well. So very, very nice. Also, you'll notice that there's multiple lighting in the bathroom. So there's a light around the fan housing that you can turn on and off via just the switch on the fan housing, or the other interior lights in the bathroom are controlled with the Firefly touchscreen. There's also multiple mirrors in the bathroom. There's a shaving mirror that's above the sink. You also have a nice convenient shaving mirror that's on a mount clip here that'll stop it from rattling as you go down the road. You just simply pull it out of the clip, and then you have your nice mirror, and the mirror will swivel. And then once you're done, you can just clip it right back in to position. We also have a microwave convection air fryer oven in these units. You got to remember that this is only going to work whenever you're running your generator or when you're plugged into shore power on units that are equipped with generator. But if you have an ion unit, this unit will actually work off of the ion batteries and through the inverter. So this unit has operating two different ways depending on how your unit is equipped, if you have an ion unit or on a generator unit. Let me go ahead and show you some other features that we have underneath here. Underneath the ottoman on the passenger side of the vehicle, behind this panel, open up this panel, and behind this panel is your main Firefly touchscreen brain and the module for your Mira app. And you can download that Mira app as well to control all of the features that are operating from the Firefly touchscreen, and I'll show you how to do that here shortly. Inside here also is a backup switch for your generator start stop and your backup hour meter, and also the main screen for the sea level for tank monitoring, and you can see all the tank monitors on your Firefly touchscreen as well, and that's in this compartment. So next to this compartment is the mount bracket for your Lagoon Table system. So locate your Lagoon mounting arm. It is stored above the cabin in the rear above the couch. On this mount post here has a magnet, and it actually shuts off and disables the ottoman on the passenger side of the vehicle when it is inserted into the bracket, so it is not getting damaged just by possible hitting of the switches of the ottoman. So insert it in down into the bracket so the magnets line up, and then simply tighten the bracket so the post is secure, and then you can take your table and mount it on the top of this post, and then you can have a nice table that swivels around inside the unit. Once you're all done, you can remove the table off of there, and then remove the bracket or the post off of the bracket, and then the operation will commence again with the ottoman. And this store is actually above the back cabinet here. In the back cabinet, there's some nice convenient clips for that to go into the storage position for while traveling. Also, on the other side of the vehicle, on the driver's side, you have another compartment. This compartment houses your remote controlled battery switch, a battery fuse panel, and also all your 110 volt circuit breakers, and 12 volt fuses in this location. There should be all labeled as far as all the 12 volts, as far as what the fuses are operating at that point, and also all of your 110 volt circuit breakers are all conveniently labeled in this location as well. We'll close that up. Yeah. Once you're done and you want to store your table post for your Lagoon table, it conveniently has two clips in the very back cabinet here. Just clip it into position. It'll hold it in the position while traveling. Above me, you will notice that there's a Dometic 13,500 BTU air conditioning unit that is controlled through the Firefly system. On the tour model, in the overhead cabinet behind the bathroom, if you open up that cabinet door, you will find a couple of components in here. The first component is your Blu-ray DVD player, which will display the onto the TV below it, okay? Also, you have a Renogy solar controller here, which has Bluetooth capability as well. We install a Bluetooth module in here, so you can download the Renogy Bluetooth app, and you can see the display of your charging of your solar system right from that app as well. You can also see on this display screen here, you can select the different modes of the charging of the solar through this module here. So you can see how many amps are displayed, or how many kilowatt hours, or the voltage of the batteries at that point through this module, or like I said, on the Bluetooth app. So you can do that as well. Also, I want to point out that the control panel for the antenna on the roof for your television, so if you want to pick up over-the-air digital TV, you need to have this module here for the TV antenna. You need to have the button pushed in, and it needs to be lit up green, and that will actually be over-the-air antenna at that point. If you want to have shore cable inlet from your side of your vehicle, this button needs to be in the off position. That will select that shore cable inlet on the side and not select from the TV antenna on the roof. So make sure that if you're having cable TV from your shore inlet on the side of the vehicle, that this button is off. If it is not, you will not get any signal from that. Vice versa as well. If this button is off, you will not get any over-the-air TV reception. So make sure if you're trying to watch over-the-air TV reception that this button is actually on and it is lit up. That switches the input from the TV antenna to the shore cord, and vice versa, like I said. So make sure if you're watching over-the-air TV that this is actually on, okay? Let's take a look. Right above this cabinet is your smoke alarm. This actually has a 9-volt battery in it, so make sure that you check this every time that you go out to make sure that the battery is actually in good condition, and there is a test button on here. I would recommend to replace this battery every year or every start of the season before you go out on your camping trip. Below this is actually the Vega Touch Mira app download. So we put this label on every vehicle so you can actually easily scan the QR code right here, and you can actually download that Mira app. And with the Mira app, you can control everything that's on the touch screen here. So you can control your lighting, you control your awning, you can control generator start stop, all that. If it's equipped with generator, it'll have it on there. If it's not, if it's a lithium system, I will not have that feature on there. So you can go ahead and download that. And then once you download that, what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to go down to the service page here and the settings page and click the mobile app. Once you push the mobile app, it's going to give you the QR code as well. It's the same QR code on the sticker and on the screen, but what you're going to need is the Mira ID and the Mira PIN number. So once you download the app, it's going to prompt you to, you'll have to select which Mira ID. You should only have one if you're by yourself, and then you're going to need to select and put the 4-digit PIN number in there. If in fact somebody has reset the PIN number, it's going to be 6 7s there, and if it has 6 7s there, you're going to need to put in your own ID. It'll prompt you to put in your own custom ID number in there. We put an ID number in on every unit that's custom, so if it has it in there, you can use that, or you can reset it and put your own in there. So it's solely your preference to do that. But that's that simple. Once you download it, then it may do an update on the app. Once it does the update on the app, then you can actually control everything that's on the touchscreen here. On this particular unit on the main home screen, you will see that this is a generator unit. So the generator unit is going to have a generator start stop in this area. On lithium units, that will not be there. Also on LP units with generator, you're going to see a tank level for LP, and on lithium-ion units, that is not going to be in that position. So we will show you that on another unit as well. Your controls for your ottomans on the back, when you want to convert it into bed, it's very simple. Just you can extend or retract the ottomans, or you can lay down the sofa or maybe the sofa back up into the seating position. It's that simple to go into a bed mode and come back out of a bed mode so you can actually sit in the vehicle. So very easy to convert. You also have a light master, so you can turn on the lights or turn off the lights. This light master only works on the interior lights. So if you turn the exterior lights on, I'm going to show you here. We'll go to the lighting page. So if I have exterior lights on, like porch or awning or compartment lights or outside step light, those lights are not going to shut off from the lighting master. So if I hit the lighting master off, it's going to go dark inside the vehicle. But if you notice that the exterior light still stays on that was selected on, or you can turn the interior lights back on from the lighting master. The other thing that you can do with the lighting master button, so for example, if you turn off the ceiling lights, and then I'm going to turn another one off here. Let's turn off the Galley. And then if I turn the lighting master off, and then I turn the lighting master back on, you notice that those lights will stay off. It will not turn them back on. If you want everything on the interior to come back on for the lighting master, go ahead and push and hold the lighting master button on, and then we'll turn all the interior lights back on at that point and reset it so everything comes back on with the lighting master, or goes off with the lighting master. And remember, only interior lights are controlled by the lighting master. Anything that has a up arrow and a down arrow is dimmable, so I'll demonstrate that for you too as well. So if you push and hold the button, it'll dim the lights. I'm dimming down the ceiling lights, and once you let go, it'll stay in that position. And then if you want it to go back up again, simply push and hold it. It'll still cycle all the way down and then go all the way back up. And you can let it go wherever you feel comfortable, where you want that light to be. So like I said, everything that has a arrow up and down has dimmable capability. Everything that has an arrow up and down has dimmable capability to it. Anything that does not have an arrow is just simply on and off. So let's go back to the main home screen. On the main home screen, like I said, you have lighting master, your awning controls. On a unit that's equipped with a generator, it has an automatic generator start feature. So to enable the automatic generator start feature, you cannot just simply push it. You have to push it, it'll change the screen, and then you have to enable the button. Once you enable the button, then it'll go to the automatic generator start page, but you have to push and hold that button in to get to that page. And then once it gets to the page, then you can select what you would like it to do for automatic generator start. You can actually set times when the automatic generator start will actually work. So when it starts or when it ends, you can select those times. So you will have quiet times basically for like at night. So when you're sleeping, the generator doesn't automatically start. Also, you can set up the automatic gen start voltage. So when the voltage gets down to a certain point, it'll actually automatically start. And when the voltage gets up to a certain point, you can actually have the generator shut off by itself. So that's a very nice feature. You can also set it so whenever you turn on the air conditioner, it will actually automatically start the generator if it's not running at that point, because you got to remember that the air conditioner is working off of 110 volts. So it's only going to work on generator units whenever the generator is running, or whenever you're plugged into shore power for your air conditioner. Okay. And also your microwave only works when you are plugged in to shore power and or when the generator is running. So that's some features that are on the automatic generator start. So that is a nice thing about automatic generator start. So if you have any other questions about that, you can always contact us. Lighting page we already hit. And then we'll go to the electrical settings page. On the electrical settings page, you'll notice on the top left-hand corner that you have a shore power source selector there. So right now it's on 30 amp shore. It will actually select to 15, 20, or 30. Make sure you have that shore power selection on the proper selection for whatever source you are plugged into. So for example, if you're at a park and you're plugged into a 30 amp service, you can have it on 30 amp service. But if you actually use the adapter that is supplied and you're plugging it into your house and you have it on a 30 amp service, and in fact you're plugging it into your house circuit, which could be 15 or 20 amp service at that point, they will not control the EMS loads right here. So you have a potential at that point of blowing the circuit breaker in your home, and then you'll have to reset it. And then if you don't select this in the proper way for 15 or 20 amp at that point, it may blow the breaker again. So just be aware that whatever service you're plugged into on your shore power cord, that you select that proper area here in this location. So like I said, 15, 20, or 30 amp, and just be aware of that. So because if not, you may have issues. When you're plugged into shore power, as this one is right now, it actually shows you what the AC power is coming in, and it'll show you how many amps of load that you actually are pulling through the system, and it'll tell you that the hertz that it's always should be right around 60, okay, because we're in the United States. So it's actually showing me here on the screen that the power is coming in from AC power and is flowing through the transfer switch, going through the circuit breaker box, out through the inverter charger, and then charging the batteries actually at this point. This particular unit is actually, whenever you're plugged in, should show pass through right here. And if it does not show pass through and you are plugged in, then there is something wrong. So either check the circuit breaker on your feed wherever you plugged in your shore power cord to. It may be an issue there. If you're using a surge protector, make sure that the surge protector is reset and that it is showing proper voltage and amperage going through that and the proper hertz, because if it's not, maybe it actually shut the system down. So check that as well. Or check your circuit breakers like I showed you in the video a little bit earlier. Below the ottoman on the driver's side is where the main breakers are going to be coming into the unit, so check those down there as well. But like I said, whenever you're plugged into shore power, should show pass through at this position. Below that is the charger. So this unit is actually charged all the way, so it's in the float mode right here. But when you first plug your unit in, it's going to show bulk right here. It's going to bulk charge the batteries as fast as possible from the inverter charger. The next stage is absorption charge. It'll say absorb right here. It won't be in that mode for very long. And then once the batteries are charged all the way, it'll go to float in this position. Right in the middle of the screen, it says IC amps. This is the amount of amperage that the charger is actually charging the unit right now. So that will fluctuate depending on the state of charge of the batteries and what the battery charger is actually doing at that point as far as charging them. This is a maximum charge on units with generators is 100 amps. The maximum charge on lithium-ion units that have a larger inverter charger is going to be 150 amps on that position. That's the maximum charge you can get out of those inverter chargers. On the left hand side here, you have a generator start stop button as well. And then again, your automatic gen start features are on this location too, and is lit up blue. That means it is actually on this unit. If you disable your automatic generator start and you want to re-enable that, just simply push the button. It'll prompt you to enable it. You need to push and hold that enable button again, and then it'll go back to the screen, and then it will enable it once again. This resets every single time you turn the battery power off to the house. So remember that if you turn the battery power off to the house, this automatic generator start is not automatically going to come back on when you turn the power back on to the house. You need to re-enable it again. So just keep that in mind. That is pretty much it on this screen. If this AGS button is lit up blue, the automatic generator start is actually on, and I will disable it like simply touch of a button. Let's go to the next screen here. The next screen is your climate control screen. So the climate control screen is where you control your air conditioning. Remember, if you are in a generator unit with propane, that air conditioner only is going to work whenever you're plugged into shore power or when the generator is actually running. If you have a lithium-ion unit, this air conditioner will work off of the ion batteries and the inverter, but you must ensure that the inverter in this area right here, when you are on an ion unit, that it says enabled whenever you're not plugged into shore power for all your 110 volt, your air conditioner, your microwave, and your induction cooktop to operate at that point on an ion unit. So back to the climate control screen, your setting of your cabin temperature that you would like to have it cool down to. Your cool button is right here. This system only works when you have the cool button on. If you turn the cool button off, it will turn the compressor off on the air conditioner. It'll turn the fans off if you're in auto mode and you deselect the cool button. And there is a delay for this, so don't be alarmed that the fans don't turn off if it says auto and this is not lit up blue where it's cool here. It will turn off. It's about a 15 to 20 second delay before it shuts down, okay? If you select low or high right here, it's going to turn the fan on and it'll stay on until you deselect the low or the high. So you have to go to auto mode to turn the fan off if you don't want it to be running continuously. If you're on low, like I said, or on high, the fan's going to be running continuously until you select auto. If you select auto and it's in cool mode and it still needs to cool the cabin down, the fan is still going to be running. So if you want the fan to shut off and you want the system to shut off at that point, you must turn off the cool button. The vent fan controls are here. If you push the power button, it'll turn the fan on and it'll raise the lid. If you can control the fan speeds, it's automatically come in. You can control the speeds, it's automatically going to turn on in medium speed. You can control it on low or you can control it on high. And this is not an automatic setting, so you must select your speeds here. It also has a rain sensor on the exterior of the fan, so If it starts to rain, it will automatically close the vent fan. And remember, that will only work whenever there's 12 volts in the system. If you have the power off in the system and you have your fan open and it starts to rain, it's not automatically going to close. So keep that in mind. It has to have 12 volts in the system and on for the rain sensor to operate and close the fan in the event that it starts to rain. We'll go ahead and turn that off and it'll automatically close. If you don't want the fan to be on and you want just the vent open, then you can just hit the vent open button and the vent will open and not turn the fan motor on. Some cases you don't want the fan motor on, but you just want the vent open to have some airflow through this unit. Go ahead and close the fan down. The next page is for your shades. So you have a shade master up on the top. If you simply just push the button and release it, it will run all the shades down. If you want the shades to stop in a position, just push the button again and they'll stop in whatever position they were whenever you hit the button. If you want them to go back up, simply push the button and they'll go back up. Remember that the sliding door screen, so the shade that's on the sliding door will only operate whenever the door is closed. It will not operate when the door is open. So make sure that you have the door closed if you want that window shade to go down or up on the sliding door. You can control the shades individually if you want. So you can just push and release and they will actually go down individually. Like I said, you can push the button again, it'll stop, or you can push the button, it'll go back up in the other direction. There's also equipped that there's a driver's side rear, passenger side rear, and passenger side mid, power screen. So the power screen is actually the screen that's on the very back of the unit in the rear doors. And then if you notice rear door, that's your shade for the rear door as well, for the rear, behind the rear couch. So same operations on all these features and all these shades, and also the screen. The screen operates the same way. So if you push the button, the screen's going to start to go down. If you want it to go down all the way, it'll go all the way down and actually stop on its own. If you want to stop it in between somewhere, you just push the button again, simply it'll stop it. If you want to go back the other direction, just push the button and it'll go back the other direction. All these features that I'm showing you on this Firefly screen here, you can control from the Firefly app. So you can just have it on your phone and control it with the app, and it's basically a remote control. And like I said before, you can go to the service settings page right here. You can get the app information right here on this screen, and you can download that QR code, or you can download the QR code that's on the sticker that is supplied in the unit as well. So if somebody's peeled this off and you don't have the sticker, you can always go to this screen and download the QR code there, and that will download the app. Like I said, you need to know what the Mira ID is so you know that you're on your particular coach, and the Mira pin to be able to go in and operate the system. Below the Firefly touchscreen, you will find that you have your Timberline heater. So the Timberline heater works a couple of different ways. This heating system is actually going to be controlling your hot water in your unit and your furnace in your unit. So you need to know that there is two different heat sources on the Timberline heating system. One of them is your heating element on the bottom right hand corner. This heating element is only going to work and create heat in the system if you are plugged into shore power. If you are not plugged into shore power, this heating element is not going to operate any heat in the system. If you push the button, it'll start the initialization of the system, but it's not going to create any heat in the system unless you're plugged into shore power. So be aware of that. This only is going to operate any heat in the system if you're plugged into shore power. The bottom left-hand icon is your fuel-fired burner. This actually is taking diesel fuel from the fuel tank and actually creating heat from the diesel fuel through the fuel-fired burner that's mounted on the exterior of the vehicle. So if you select that heating source, it'll start actually the heating system for 1 day, and you can change that on the service pages up here. I'll show you that here in a moment. but it'll start it for 1 day when you first turn the system on. And if you can hear it, it'll start the pump process. It'll start circulating the coolant through the system, and then it'll start the fuel fired burner. It's going to take at least 2 to 3 minutes for the burner to actually start a burn process, and then it'll take up to 5 minutes until it starts really creating heat in the system. So don't think that you can just turn it on and it's not instant heat. It's like your engine of your car. You have to actually run it for a while for it to start building heat in the system before it actually starts to perform and push out heat through your furnace or your water heater at that point. So if you have a heat source selected here or here, and when you're plugged into shore power on the right hand element, this one will create heat as well. So you have to have a heat source selected for the heating system to start generating heat and for the system to operate. The top left hand icon looks like a little water spigot or like a hose spigot that you would have at your home. If you select that, that is going to change the algorithms and the way that the program is designed here for your heating performance. So if you want to take a shower, for example, and you want better water heating performance, then turn that icon on. That's what that icon is there for. You don't need to have that icon on for any water heat. So if you want hot water in the system, you just need to have a heat source selected. But if you want better water heater performance when you want to take a shower, turn that icon on. That icon will only stay on for 30 minutes. You can actually change those settings, and the maximum it will stay on is 1 hour. But when it comes from us, and every time you shut the system off and when you turn it back on, it'll, even if you changed it up to 1 hour on this override here or this heating performance, it'll revert back to 30 minutes. So if you want to change that, that's where you change it in the service pages up here in the top right hand corner. I'll show you that here in a moment. If you want to have heat in the cabin, then that's where this dial comes into play, and it's telling me right now that the cabin temperature in this unit is actually 55 degrees. And if you want to have cabin heat, you have a plus and minus sign there. You can actually push the plus sign and it'll start changing the dial right here. See how it went up to 50? You can go 51, 52, 53, and it'll change that in small increments. But if you want to do large increments, you can actually push your finger on the screen and dial that around to whatever temperature you would like to have it. So let's go to 72 or 73. If you want 72, you just push the negative button one time, go right to 72. So that when this heating element or this dial is on, that's going to turn the furnaces on the interior of the vehicle and start producing heat on the interior of the vehicle until it gets to your cabin set point there. I don't know if you can hear those fans right now, but the fans are starting to work and it'll start creating heat inside the vehicle here. Once you're done, if you don't need cabin heat anymore, go ahead and just turn that all the way down. You can dial that all the way down and then it'll turn the cabin heat and the fans will go out. If you have it set at 72, once it starts getting close to the cabin temp, then those fans will start regulating themselves and start turning off. The service page is on the top right hand corner here. If you push the service page button, you can change your display brightness here on the screens from here. You can change the timeout. So when the screen actually goes dark, you can change those times as well. So if you want it to go out darker quicker, you can change it there. If you want it to stay on longer, you can select that as well. You can actually select it so it always stays on, but you know, some people want to go to sleep and they're very bothered by the lights being on these displays, so you can actually turn it off if you want to do that. This page right here is actually fan speed and overrides for the pump, but the fan speed, when you're in automatic mode, it's automatically going to control the fan speeds for your cabin heat. So it'll start slowing down once it gets closer to the cabin set temperature, and if it's far enough away from the cabin set temperature, it's going to control the fans on a faster speed. So I would recommend just leave it on automatic mode. If you want to put it on manual mode, you can, but then you have to control the fan speeds here on the slide bar. If you have it in automatic mode, the slide bar will move, but it will not control the fan speed. It'll only control the fan speed on the slide bar if you're in the manual mode. So just leave it in automatic. It's the easiest, most convenient thing. It'll control by itself there. The next screen here is your clock. You can set your clock settings. But honestly, when you shut your whole system down and you turn the power off to the cabin, to the coach here, it's going to reset the clock. So honestly, it really doesn't need anything with the clock. You can set it if you like. This is a service information page. This page right here is going to show you a lot of information. The first one is the air temperature. That's the air temperature that the sensor is reading in the cabin. The next one is the tank temperature. That's the holding tank temperature that is holding all the antifreeze that circulates through the system for the heat exchanger for everything to work. The next one is the heater temperature. That is actually the fuel-fired heater on the exterior of the vehicle. That's the temperature of that unit. So you can see that temperature. The heat exchanger is the heat exchanger temperature for your water heater. So that's where it actually changes your cold water for your faucets and all that stuff into hot water, is through that heat exchanger. The next one is the circulation pump. This one actually is, system is on right now. We already turned it on, so that's going to be yes. That's the circulation pump that's moving that antifreeze through the system to heat up the heat exchanger and for your cabin heat exchangers for your cabin temperature to get warm inside the cabin. The next one is solenoid. Solenoid is the one that actually changes it from your summer loop to your winter loop. So whenever you have your heater for the cabin on, that will be on. It'll say yes, and that's redirecting the antifreeze to the system for your heater. The fuel pump is on right now because the system is on, and the fuel fired burner is actually starting and working as a burn process and creating heat in the system. So if that is on, that means it is actually using diesel fuel from the fuel tank and burning it through the heater and actually creating heat. The element relay is off right now because we did not select that. Like I said, that only works whenever you are plugged into shore power, okay? The next page is limitation of heating duration. So like I said earlier, if you want to change the time that the heater is actually running for, when you first turn the heating system on, it's going to be coming on for 1 day, and that's the default program. If you want to change that, you can actually add to that just by pushing your finger and sliding it over. It's 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, or infinity. If you show the infinity sign right here, then the system is going to stay on indefinitely until you turn it off or turn your power off to the coach. So if you turn your battery switch off at the end of the galley cabinet there below the touchscreen, it'll shut this whole system down. But if you leave that on and you have it on infinity, the heating system is going to be continually on until you actually turn it off. But like I said, it comes in 1 day as default. So after 1 day, 24 hours, this system is actually going to shut itself down. The next one above that is domestic water. This is where you change it from when you hit your icon on your domestic water performance icon on the top left-hand corner right here. So if we turn that on, it's going to show you that it's going to be on for 30 minutes. If you want it on for an hour, then you can go to this screen right here, and it's set at 30 minutes. If you slide that over, it'll show you 60 minutes. That's 1 hour. That's a maximum it'll stay on. After 60 minutes, it's going to revert back to the normal, and this icon will turn itself off. So don't be alarmed that you turned it on and you came back in here in 30 minutes or an hour and that actually turned itself off. It's going to do that automatically. So like I said, if you want to take a shower and you want better water heater performance, go ahead and turn that icon on. It'll give you better water heater performance. If you have any other questions about this system, you can always refer to grechrv.com and go to our YouTube page there. You can redirect to the YouTube page from grechrv.com, and there's a couple of videos on specifically how this Timberline system works. Also on our Grech RV website, and if you direct over to the YouTube site as well, there's videos on the Firefly system and how the Firefly system actually works, and there's a more in-depth video on that as well. So please refer back to there, grechrv.com, on the operation of these two components as well. Below the Firefly touchscreen and the Timberline heating control system on the back of this Strada Tour, you're going to have your 24-inch TV, smart TV, and your soundbar below that. So this is a Vizio smart TV. There is capability of streaming videos and TV stations to this smart TV, as well as picking up digital TV antenna stations wherever you're local there on your local stations. So just be aware that this TV is a smart TV. And I will have a subsequent video on programming this smart TV as well. So if you have questions about how this TV operates, please watch the video on how to program your Vizio TV. Also, if you can find the release here, pull the release down. That will release the latch for the television. This actually has a swivel bracket on there, so you can swivel it around for your viewing pleasure and your viewing direction. It'll actually swivel around the corner here, so you can actually watch TV as well if you are actually preparing food or whatnot. So you can actually watch TV if you are an avid TV watcher. So very nice. Once you're done, you can swivel this thing back around and actually clip it back into position. It'll lock it in for traveling. This will be nice and secured for traveling. So just remember your release and then lock it back in before you travel, so the TV is not moving itself around when you're moving along the vehicle down the road. Also, I'd like to point out that on each side of the vehicle in the rear, we have a 110 volt outlet with a USB for charging and a USB-C for charging as well. So for you that have the new USB-C charger for all the iPhones and everything, then you have a USB-C right here and you don't need to use an adapter. Or if you have the older units and you just need a USB, there's a USB as well. And if you want to use your block charger, you can plug it in right here. You got to remember that this is only going to work whenever your inverter's on, your generator's running, or when you're plugged into shore power. Also below there, there's a nice convenient cup holder for when you're traveling. If you got people in the back, you can have your cups down in there as well. Also, every seating position that we build here in Grech RV has seat belts, and they are FMVSS certified seat belt pull tests on all these seat positions. So that concludes a walk around of the Strada Tour with the generator package with propane. Now let me show you the Strada-ion package with the lounge model. So now that we just got done looking at the Strada Tour, we are now in a Strada lounge model. So you'll notice that the lounge model has actually 4 captain's chairs in it, the 2 driver and co-pilot seat, and the 2 added captain's chairs that Grech installs in the back here. In these seats, actually, there is seatbelt anchors in these seats for child restraints. So in the middle of these cushions back here, you'll see the little tags that are sewn into the seat cushion, and those are the hooks in there for a child seat. So if you have a small child and it needs a child restraint seat in there that has the convenient hooks, though, these 2 seating positions on these 2 captain's chairs are actually equipped with that. Also, on the lounge model, you have a table mount up in the front section here, and that is a pole mount style table. So this pole actually stores in the back cabinet above the rear couch. There's clips there that you can have this stored there while traveling. So remove that out of the back cabinet, out of the clips, and this mounts down into the mount plate that's on the floor there. I want to point out to you also that it has a T here in the bottom of the pole. Make sure this is extended enough that it actually locks down into the mount plate down here. Let me show you how that goes in and installs. So there's a dust cover. Just simply remove the dust cover out of there. You can store this in the pocket in the side or wherever you feel comfortable putting that. And then if you notice that this little, like I said, this T locks into the slot that's in the base of the mount there. So once you put that in there, then you simply just turn it counterclockwise and it'll lock in. And then once it's tight, that'll be solid in there. So it's very solid for the table. So back behind this captain's chair on the driver's side is a convenient mount location or storage location for your tabletop. So remove that from that location. And this is the cup that actually will insert into the pole right there for your table. And once you get that installed on there, then you can have a nice table for doing various things, eating. And those front captain's chairs actually will swivel around so you can have a nice lounging area. That's why this is called the lounge. So this is like the lounge area. So when you're all done doing that and you want to store it back in position again, simply just remove the table from the base there and then put it back into the storage location. Back here, just simply slip it into the slot right there. When you want to remove the pole, there is a lock button on the bottom. So what you want to do is push that lock button in towards the pole and then turn the pole counterclockwise to unscrew it while holding in that lock. And it'll unlock, and then you can simply remove it and then put it back into the storage in the rear cabinet. Get your dust cover and put your dust cover back in so it doesn't accumulate any debris in that area. And there you go. So that's how your front table works. On the lounge model, you also have a 24-inch smart TV that's mounted in the front above the driver and co-pilot area there. So you can have TV for the two front passengers in the area right here. I also want to mention that this sound from this TV only works from the wireless headphones that are supplied with the unit. There is a transmitter on the side of the box here that actually is supplying the signal to the wireless headphones. But remember, there is no external speakers on this TV. They only work with the wireless headphones that we supply. Okay, so keep that in mind. And the cabinet on the driver's side, just to the left of the TV in the front on the lounge model, you will find the solar charge controller here from Renogy. This actually has a Bluetooth module on it as well, so you can download the Renogy Bluetooth app on your phone and you can pull the information up from this system so you can see what your charge levels are, that the solar is charging your batteries and your amperage and all that stuff information through that Renogy app as well. So below that here is our Blu-ray DVD player. This has a HDMI splitter and it'll actually distribute the signal to the front television and the rear television on this unit. That is mounted in the back of the coach as well. So you'll notice here on the middle section of the panel is where your Timberline heater control systems are. This actually will control your cabin heat and your water heater heat. This control system actually has a fuel-fired burner which controls the heater and the water heater, and a heater element that only is going to be operating when you are plugged into shore power. So keep that in mind. That heater element on the right-hand side here only works when you're plugged into shore power. On the top left-hand corner here again is your water heater performance button, so it actually gives you better water heater performance. I'm just kind of reviewing some of this for you as well that we already reviewed on the other model, but it operates exactly the same way on all of our models. So if you need more information on this Timberline heater system, please refer to the specific videos for Timberline heater system controls. And that's available on grechrv.com, and then you follow the link to our YouTube channel and then click videos, and there's a lot of instructional videos and stuff on there as well for this system. To the left of it is your control for your antenna for your TV and for your selection for your cable inlet for your television. So if the button is pushed in and is lit up green like it is here, you're going to be using the TV antenna and over-air digital TV signal. If you turn that button off and the light goes out, then you're using the part cable inlet on the side of the vehicle. So keep that in mind. If you're trying to watch over the air TV, you need to have that button on for that to work. We also supply a pre-wired satellite cable here in the bottom of the cabinet in case you ever want to install a satellite system on your unit. This cable is pre-wired in through the interior, and that cable is in the box above the TV here in the driver's cabin area. So just keep that in mind, that that cable is in those locations. So let me get back here and I'll show you the rest of the galley cabinet and the stuff in the back of the unit. Okay, so on the end of the galley cabinet on this lounge model, we also have the Firefly touchscreen, and you're going to find your battery shut-off switch right here, and this will control the power to the coach and the power to the refrigerator, and also the power to your inverter. Now keep in mind, this switch does not turn off your batteries. On this Ion unit that we're reviewing here on the lounge model is actually an Ion unit, so I'll show you where the battery shut-off switches are here shortly, but this does not turn your batteries off. Keep that in mind and remember that, because if you're doing long-term storage of this vehicle for more than a week or two at a time, then you are recommended to turn off the power to the batteries themselves, and I'll show you where the switches are here shortly. This only turn off the load on the batteries, so it turns off all the power going to all the touch screens and, like I said, all the 12-volt systems in the unit. So this will just short-term storage right here. If you're just going to be leaving the vehicle for a while and you don't need to have the unit on, turn this off. Long-term storage, I'll show you where those battery switches are here shortly. So the step switch next to this will actually disable the step from operating when the door is opened and closed. So if you're camping and you are opening and closing that door and you don't want that step to be going in and out, turn this in the off position. Once you have the door open, the step is deployed, turn that switch off, then that step will stay deployed as long as the vehicle is not running. So if the vehicle is actually running, then that step will actually work again, even though the switch is in the off position, so you don't drive away with your step extended, okay, if you forget to turn the switch back on. So that's kind of a safety feature there. Firefly control screens here, we kind of reviewed this a little bit on the video prior, but this one's a little bit different because this one actually is an Ion unit, so it's going to have a few different things showing here on the screen. If you noticed on the one prior to with the generator, it's going to have more generator information here, start stop and auto gen start in this location. This one doesn't have that information there because there is no generator board. Also, there is no propane or LP level sensor here because it has no propane on board on this unit. So keep that in mind. That's the differences between an Ion unit and a propane unit. No generator and no propane on Ion, and then obviously you're going to have propane and a generator on generator units. Okay, so that is pretty much the difference on this part of the screen. You still have your tank heater button here for your tank heaters, and those are thermostatically controlled. So if you have this in standby mode like it is right now, and the tank heater blankets on the bottom of the unit get cold enough, then they'll automatically turn on. If they warm up, they'll automatically turn themselves back off. So don't think that, oh, if I turn that on, they're going to be on all the time. That's not the case. They will actually regulate themselves. So keep that in mind. Water pump, obviously turn that on whenever you're using water from your fresh water tank on board. You do not need to have this water pump switch on when you are using city water connection, because the city water connection is going to be pressurizing the unit via the city water, and you do not need to have the water pump on. So you only need the water pump on if you are using fresh water out of the system off the holding tank that's on board on the unit. And over here we have your controls for your ottomans and for your sofa. So you use these controls to convert the rear of the coach down into bed position versus seating position, and you simply just push the button and that will extend the ottoman. And once the ottoman goes all the way out, when it stops, just release it. And then if you want to retract it to go back into the seating position, you just push and hold the button and it'll retract and it'll go back into a seating position. Keep in mind, you can only push one button at a time. You cannot push two at a time. So if you try to do two at a time, it's not going to do it. It's only going to select one at a time. So you're only going to be able to do one of these buttons at a time. So one function at a time on these buttons, and that's how it works. lighting master on and off. This will turn your interior lights on and off. So if you want all the interior lights off, you just push the off button. If you want them back on, push the on button. That will control all the lights. Your awning extend and retract. So if you want to extend the awning, you push and hold the button to extend the awning. If you want to retract the awning, push and hold the retract button on the awning. Keep in mind that the awning also has a wind sensor built into the headrail on the awning. So if it is windy outside and it starts moving enough, it'll automatically retract the awning. As long as this switch is on and your battery power is on in your unit, that function will work. So if you walk away from your unit and your awning is extended and you turn the power off, or if your batteries turn off because of low voltage, then that awning will not retract from that wind sensor. It will not operate, okay? So our recommendation is that there's any time that you're leaving your unit, retract that awning and do not leave the awning out with it not being attended. That wind sensor will move the awning in if it sees wind, but it will not protect the awning against big, huge gusts of wind that all of a sudden come up. It will damage the awning, and you want to be cautious on that. Okay, so make sure if you're not with the unit that you retract the awning and not leave it extended when you're not with it. This also will have a awning lockout feature. Whenever the vehicle is running, it will ignition lock out the extend part of your awning. You can only retract it if the engine is running. So if your engine is running and you're trying to extend the awning and it's not working, you'll have a sign down here saying ignition locked. So, and this will not operate for the extension. So just shut your ignition off and then your awning will work on the extend and on the retract. But it will work on retract always when the vehicle's running as well. So keep that in mind. Let's go to the next page, is your lighting page. Then again, your lighting master on and off. Simple. If you want them off, turn them on, turn them back on. And then you can also control your dimming of your buttons here with every icon that has an arrow up and down. You can dim the lights up and down. And wherever you set that, it'll actually stay there. So if you dim the lights down to a certain percentage and you want to turn it off, simply just push the button and turn it off, and push the button again, it'll come back on. It'll come back on to that dimmed point. If you want to change it, you simply push and hold the button and it'll dim the lights and they'll stay there like I said. And you push it, it'll dim them all the way down and then it'll go all the way back up again. So it's a simple just push and hold and let go wherever you want it to stay, and then just push and tap off, push and tap back on. That is a function on everything that has an arrow. Anything that doesn't have an arrow, it's just a simple tap off, tap on. It doesn't have a dimming function on it. This electrical settings page on a lithium-ion unit is set up a little bit different than the page that you're going to see if you have a generator unit. So the prior unit we were reviewing in this video has a generator on it. This particular unit is an ion unit. So on an ion unit, it has a 3,000 watt inverter charger on board. The generator unit has a 2,000 watt inverter charger mounted in it. So this with a 3,000 watt inverter controls your air conditioner, your cooktop, and your convection microwave air fryer oven. So keep that in mind as well. So if you want to use those functions in here, if you want to use your air conditioner, or you want to use your cooktop, or you want to use your convection microwave air fryer oven, which is a pretty nice feature, I'll show you that here in a moment, that you have to have the inverter enabled. So those components will work on an ion unit off of the inverter, or they will work when you are plugged into shore power. So if it is inverted and it is enabled, that means that the inverter is actually on, and it's showing me here on the screen that it's pulling power from the batteries to the inverter, and the inverter is sending power out to the circuit breaker box. So you can see the flow in the screen here, how the power is running through the unit. With this being enabled, it's flowing power from the batteries, the lithium battery system, to the circuit breaker panel and sending power out to the various components in the unit. So you can see here that my microwave is showing on, the cooktop showing on, the roof AC shows off because I don't have the roof AC on right now, but in fact that will be on if you turn it on. So what this system does is it actually monitors how much load is being drawn from the inverter, and that'll show you in this information right here on the screen. It says inverter AC output. So that is the output that the inverter is actually sending out right now, and it shows you how much amperage load is being loaded on the inverter. So the EMS loads knows how much is available there, and it will automatically shed or turn off those specific components. And it starts with the AC first, and then it'll go to the cooktop so you can run your microwave. For example, if you're running your air conditioner and the load is 13 to 14 amps load, and you turn your microwave on, the system is smart, and it's going to know that it cannot run both components at the same time. So what it'll do is it will shut off your AC compressor, and it'll allow the microwave to run. Once a microwave turns off, then the components will start turning back on. There is some delay in that system for things to start turning back on, because it wants to know that there's enough power available to actually turn the system back on for those specific components. So keep that in mind. If it sheds, and it'll say shed when it turns it off, eventually it will come back on. So when you first initialize the system and turn it on, it'll say shed on all these components. And then once it starts turning units on, then you're able to use those specific components. So when you are in inverter, it'll say inverted, and it'll show inverter information right here. And you must have it enabled right here in this position for the inverter to be supplying power to the unit. Below that, where it says charger, this is the inverter charger. So keep in mind, this is not the 280 amp alternator on the engine that is charging your lithium-ion batteries. This is the inverter charger at this point. We are not plugged into shore power, so it's saying no charge because there is no charge being generated by the inverter at this point. When you plug it into shore power, which we will do here in just a moment, and I'll show you how the screen looks different, this will change over and it'll show bulk charge in this position. And then this whole pattern right here of the power flow is going to go in a different direction. So let me plug this unit in, and then I'm going to show you how we select the different shore power sources in that location when it's plugged in, and how this all changes. Okay, now I plug the unit in, and now you can see how the screen is actually looking different now. So it is actually pulling power from the shore power cord, going into the transfer switch, from the transfer switch feeding power into the shore breaker box here, and then go into the inverter slash charger. And now the charger is actually feeding power into your house batteries. So what you can see is the power flow is different when you're plugged in versus when you're not plugged in. So remember, when you were not plugged in and the inverter was actually on, it was pulling power from the house batteries and going over to the breaker box. So now when we're plugged in, it's feeding power from the shore power cord through the breaker box, through the inverter charger, into the batteries. Right here it says pass through. That is meaning that it is passing power through the inverter and sending power through the inverter and sending it out to the section where the inverter used to be powering the outlets and such. So keep that in mind. If this does not say pass through right here and you are plugged in, then you have a problem. So check your circuit breakers in the unit, and check your circuit breaker on your power source, wherever you plugged your shore power cord into. So the reason why I'm saying that is because in some cases it will blow the breaker where you plugged your power cord into, your shore power cord. That's where this right here up in the top left hand corner really comes into play. So where it says power source right here, it says 30 amp shore. So if you're plugged into a 30 amp power source, then you can leave it on 30 amp. If you're plugged into anything else than the 30 amp source, like a 15 or a 20, you can push this button and it'll switch over. It'll go down to 15. And when you do that, it changes the way that the load center computes how much power is available in the system. So if it's on 15, it'll only draw a maximum of 15 amps through the shore power cord. If you go to a 20, it'll only draw a maximum of 20 amps through the shore power cord. And if you go to 30, it'll draw a maximum of 30 amps through the shore power cord. So keep that in mind. If you are on 30 amp shore right here and you plug into a 15, when you start trying to run these components, like when the battery charger comes on, it will possibly overdraw that current of 15 amps and blow that breaker. So select the 15 and then you should be good. Or same thing, if you're going to be on a 20 amp service, select the 20 amp service. So just keep that in mind. You want to make sure that you select this correct selection on what you're plugged into. So you got to know what your power source is. If you notice that when I change this source, this power selection here, the EMS loads actually changed around. So now they're coming back online. But if you change this power source here, these may shut down, and then like I said, they have a time delay for them to start working again. This is the first stage of the battery charger, is bulk. So it's gonna charge the maximum amount to the batteries when you first plug it in until the batteries get charged up. And then once the batteries get charged up, it'll go to absorption charge, which helps equalize out the cells as far as the charge goes. And then once they're charged fully, this will go to float charge. And float charge is just gonna keep the batteries in a charged state. So it will not allow the batteries to be depleted as far as charge. If it needs to charge, it will. If the batteries don't need charge, it will not. So don't be alarmed. If this says float, it will just keep the batteries maintained and it will not overcharge the batteries at that point. If at any reason you don't want the battery charger on, say for example at nighttime and you're plugged in and there is cooling fans on the inverter just to keep the system cool in the inverter so it doesn't overheat. Remember, it is an electrical component, and when it's in charge mode or even when the inverter is being used as an inverter, those fans may come on just to keep the unit cool so it does not overheat. But if you do not want the charger to be working, then what you can do is you can push this button where it says bulk right here, and it will disable the charge. So if you notice, now it says disabled, and there's no arrow feeding from the inverter to the batteries for the charger. So right now, the way it's set right here, it is not charging the batteries. Even though I am plugged in, I can tell that I'm plugged in from pass-through and is not charging the batteries right now because I disabled it. If I want to re-enable the inverter to charge the batteries again, just simply push the button and it'll say no charge, but then it'll start going into the charge mode as a bulk charge, like I said, and then the absorption charge and then float charge. So like I said, if you don't want that charger to be working, you can disable it, but if you disable it, it's not going to charge your batteries. Just remember that. Right here in the middle of the screen, it says IC amps. That means inverter charger amps. So this will read how many amps it's actually charging the batteries, or it'll read how many amps you're actually pulling out of the batteries from the inverter when the inverter's working. So this is actually regulated as far from the touchscreen here, from the Firefly touchscreen. It actually regulates the battery charger that's in the inverter. So when you have your loads selected here on the top left, it's going to adjust the amount of battery charge going into the battery so it does not overload the breaker. So then again, if you do not have the breaker size selected correctly, when the battery charger really starts to kick in and ramp up, it's going to maybe overload what you have selected there. So make sure you have that selection proper for your shore power source, okay? So you can see it starting to ramp up here. It's already at 104 amps right now. It'll get all the way up to a maximum of 150, depending on how much load you are actually on the shore power draw here. So it'll adjust this battery charge. The amount of battery charge time also is gonna vary depending on obviously how much amperage you're putting into the batteries and how much amperage the batteries need. So we have 1260 amp hours of lithium battery power on ion units. So if you do that math pretty quickly, if I can charge this at 150 amps, and for example, I need 600 amp hours worth of charge in here, you can do that calculation pretty quick. So I'm going to need to have that thing charged for 4 hours, right? So 4 hours at 150 amps, because 150 is 300, 150 is 450, 150 is 600. So easy math right there. So if I need 600 amp hours of charge going back into the batteries at 150 amps, it's going to take 4 hours. And that is if you are not using any other power. So there is an app on here, which I'll show you how to get to it. There is an app for Lithionics battery monitor. So download that, Lithionics battery monitor, and we'll show you that QR code here to be able to get to there. But you can go to the App Store and actually download the Lithionics battery monitor app. And I'll show you it on my phone. I already have it on my phone, so I'll show you on this unit where we are and how it actually operates. There is also a video on the Lithionics battery monitor app. This is the Lithionics battery monitor app that's on my phone. So once you download that, you can go to the app, and this is going to show a lot of batteries down here in the bottom because we're at the facility right now. But the ones that we're concerned with is the top two. The green little bar graph here on the side is actually not the battery charge. That is actually the Bluetooth signal from the battery. So I'm going to click on that one because I know that's this unit because we got the strongest signal. And this is where you see your battery information here. So right now I can see that the battery is at 82%. The current going into the battery right now is 62 amps going into the battery, and I can tell that it's charging because it's in green. If it's not in green, it's going to be in red, and red means the battery is either sitting there idle and not being charged, or it's in a discharged state. So if it's in green, it's being charged and it's good. This actually down here tells me time remaining. So 1 hour and 53 minutes to charge this particular battery. And remember, there's two batteries on these units. So they're both hooked up in parallel. They both should be very equal on charge and very equal on charge time, but you can always check them both. And you do that through the app. So the really true only way to see what your battery charge status is to check it with the Lithionics battery monitor app. So download that app, Lithionics battery monitor. You can do it at the App Store if you have an iPhone, or if you have an Android, that's available for that one as well. So keep that in mind, okay, on lithium systems. And I'll show you where the battery shutoff switches are here shortly. So electrical settings page here, and I think I pretty much covered all of it there. The only other setting here is your inverter charger pages. This actually shows you some information as far as where your battery cutouts are, your shutoffs are, your timeouts, and some other information there. Not really anything you need to deal with here on these pages, but there is information here on these pages if you want to seek it out. The next page here is your air conditioning controls page. This is the page where you're going to adjust your cabin temperature here, and you can turn your fans on low or high here. Remember, if you select a low speed or a high speed on the fan, that fan's going to stay on until you select it back to auto and you have the cool deselected. So if you have this cool button selected and it's warm enough in the vehicle and the air conditioner really needs to come on, then it'll turn the fans on. It'll automatically control the fan speeds. So if you want to turn the fan or you want to turn the air conditioner off, just deselect the cool button there and make sure that it is in auto mode, and then the fans will have a delay, but they will turn off, okay? So just keep that in mind. If you have it on low or high, the fan's going to be on until you turn it off to auto without the cool being selected. This is your front vent fan controls here. If you push the power button, it'll automatically raise the fan and turn the fan on into a medium speed. And I'll do that right now. You can hear it start and hear the fan start to open. If you want to change the speed at this point, you can just push the low button or the high speed button and it'll change the fan speed. If you want it to close again, just push the button here and it'll turn the fan off and close it. It does have a rain sensor on the exterior part when the fan cover is open. So if it does see rain on there, it'll automatically close. But then again, Remember, that's a 12-volt operated fan, and it's only going to work when you have the battery power on in the coach. So if there's no power on in the coach and you walk away and you have that fan open and it starts to rain, it's going to be raining inside your coach because there's no battery power to supply to the fan, and it will not close on its own. And so you got to make sure either close the fan before you, the vent and the fan before you leave, or leave the power on. So if it does start to rain, it'll automatically close on its own. So just keep that in mind. The next page here is your shade screen. Shades have a shade master. You can raise and lower all the shades by the touch of a button, or you do them individually on the other buttons here. There is also a power screen for the back. So you can raise and lower the power screen that's on the back doors from here. And keep in mind, the shade on the sliding door only operates when the door's in the closed position. So if you try to raise and lower the shade on the sliding door, it's not going to operate because the door is not closed. It will just not work. So only when the sliding door is closed is when that sliding door shade operates, okay? The next page is your settings page, and on the settings page you can control your bright and dim of the panel, and then you have an auto dimming feature right here. So if you select the auto dim, what it's going to do is it'll actually time the panel out, and the panel will go dark. So if you don't touch it, it'll go dark. If you touch it, it'll light back up. So you want to have that auto dimming on so the panels dark out at night, so you're not being kept awake from the panels being lit up throughout the whole entire night. Fahrenheit and Celsius button here, you can change your temperature readouts as far as your air conditioning page. So if you go back, I just selected the Celsius. If I go back here to the air conditioning page, now it's reading in Celsius. If you want to change it back to Fahrenheit, go back to the settings page and change it back to Fahrenheit. Remember, if you change this to Celsius on this panel, it only changes this panel. It will not change the other panel in the unit. So if you want both of them to read Celsius, then you have to change that selection on both panels. If you have one reading Celsius and one reading Fahrenheit, you want it to read Fahrenheit, you have to go to this page, actually change it to Fahrenheit, then it'll read Fahrenheit on your air conditioning controls. So keep that in mind. Also, this is where you get your information for your mobile app. So once you download, there's a QR code download for the mobile app, and this is the Mira ID. So you're going to need to select your Mira ID on there once you download the app, and then you're going to need to know what the Mira pin is to be able to access that particular module on your coach. So this is where you find that information on the mobile app page, on your settings page. So bottom left hand corner is where the settings page is, and then go to the mobile app, and that's where you find it. So that being said, this is where you adjust your clock. You can do 24-hour, you can do 12-hour clock. This is how you adjust your minutes and your time and everything all right there. So that's pretty much it on the Firefly screen. If you need to know more information on the Firefly screen, please refer to grechrv.com. Go to our YouTube page that you can get directed from our website, and click on videos. There's instructional videos on how the Firefly screen actually operates in the unit. Okay, so on this lounge model, you'll notice that this galley cabinet is smaller than the touring model, but it still has the same size farm style stainless sink in there. Still has the pull-out faucet, the same features that all of our models have. And like I said before, air fryer, microwave, convection oven on all of our models throughout. And you have a refrigerator freezer on this model as well. So little freezer up here on the top, nice size refrigerator. But this is a induction cooktop that you get on your lithium-ion unit. So the other model was a generator unit with a propane. Those propane units have a LP propane cooktop. These are actually induction, so electric induction cooktops on lithium-ion units. And keep in mind, this is only compatible with units that have induction compatibility. So that means if your pan will actually take a magnet and stick to the bottom of your pan, it will work on this cooktop. So if it is a full aluminum pan and the magnet will not stick to it, this cooktop will not operate. So if you have any questions on operating an induction cooktop, please look at our video. We're going to have a video on that as well, as far as how to program the settings on this induction cooktop and what specific pans you need to use to have this operate properly. So please watch for that video as well. Let me bring you back here to the back and I'll show you where your battery shutoff switches are. So underneath the ottoman on the lithium-ion battery unit, you open up the compartment on the ottoman on the passenger side. You're going to notice that instead of a generator switch in here, you are going to have two switches on this metal plate in here with blue light rings around them. So if you can see in there how the blue light rings are flashing right now, those are indicating that the batteries are being charged. So if the batteries are being charged, the light rings will be flashing. If they are not flashing and they are just solid blue, that means that the batteries are on and just in an idle state or in a discharge state. And you can, like I said earlier, you can always refer back to the Lithionics battery monitor app to see the state of charge of your lithium batteries. In here is the housing for the C-level main brain as well, same on all units, and your Firefly main brain is in this location on all units, and also your Firefly mirror app module is mounted in this location on all units as well. On the opposite side of the unit, on the driver's side underneath this ottoman, is the electrical panel for your circuit breakers, and your 12-volt fuses are in this location. Also your remote operated battery shutoff switch. Now this shutoff switch, keep in mind, is operated by the rocker switch below the touchscreen on the entry side of the galley cabinet there. So this is a motorized remote switch. When you turn that rocker switch off, it'll turn this switch off. You turn the rocker back on, it'll turn the switch back on. So there's really no reason to manually turn this switch. If you do, it will unsync it and you will have to resync it, and you can see that in a video as well. I showed you how to resync your battery switch, so watch for that video as well. Above that is your memory fuse panel here that has battery power to it for memory for your clock and for your heater system and things like that. So that's what this fuse panel is for. All these fuses and circuit breakers are clearly marked for what the certain component is that is actually supplying power to. Okay, so in the back cabinet above the rear couch, you open that cabinet up here, that's where you're going to find your storage area for your front table mount. And also we supply a Lagoon Table for the rear of the coach. So there's a mount bracket for the Lagoon Table on the passenger side of the unit right by the ottoman. So you'll have your Lagoon Table mount back here and your post for your Lagoon Table and the storage area back here as well. So same thing again on our other models with the Lagoon Table. You have the magnet switch right here that needs to be aligned with the mount down there, and that will disable the ottoman on that side so that does not damage the ottoman or your mount when this is installed. So keep that in mind. That ottoman will not operate when you have your Lagoon Table mounted. So nice convenient storage area back here so things aren't flying around in this back cabinet. I want to also point out too that this back cabinet has a magnetic switch back here that turns this cabinet light on and off, so you don't have to have your cabinet lights on in the unit for this rear cabinet light to work. There is cabinet lights that are interior of these cabinets, and these lights are operated through the Firefly system. So like I said, if you have the cabinet light icon on the Firefly system, these cabinet lights will be on and you can turn them off. But this rear cabinet actually has, like I said, the magnetic switch in there to turn that on and off automatically when you open and close that rear cabinet door. Let me show you where the QR code download is for the lithium-ion battery. Okay, so now we are here at the back of the bathroom cabinet on the lounge model. So This is the same exact functions on this Firefly touchscreen as the front touchscreen has, so I'm not going to review all that for you. But if you notice above here, we have 2 QR code download stickers, so you can download this QR code and that will redirect you to Lithionics website where you can download the Lithionics battery monitor app, or like I was saying earlier, you can go directly to the app store and just put in Lithionics battery and it'll come up with a battery monitor. You want that Li3 Lithionics battery monitor app for your lithium batteries in here. Also, if you want to go to the Firefly touchscreen and download the app for the mirror app, you can do that on the touchscreen, or you can do it right off of the sticker right here. So either way is easy to do for you. Okay, so now let me get you to the back of the unit and I'll show you the features of the lithium battery system. Okay, so now we're in the rear of the Strada with the ion package. So in the back of this compartment is an access panel door right here. If you open this access panel door up, you're going to see a really nice diagram here showing you, depicting on where the cables and stuff are and what they are actually doing. Also, I want to point out that inside this compartment here, this service disconnect switch, which is located in this compartment, is a service disconnect switch for the inverter only. So if you turn this service disconnect switch off, you're going to be shutting power off to your inverter. So that means that your inverter is not going to be charging your batteries, or the inverter will not work off of the batteries. So make sure that that service disconnect is in the on position. There is no reason to turn that off. What you turn off is the switches below the ottoman on the passenger side of the vehicle to turn your battery system off. So in this lower left-hand corner of the vehicle is where your 3,000 watt inverter charger is. So on this charger, you will see a round power button here in this location. So if this power button is not pushed in, your inverter will not operate properly from the Firefly touchscreen control. So make sure that this button is in the pushed in on position. Also, you want to be cautious about the cooling fans on the end of the inverter here. Make sure that you're not putting a bunch of blankets and cargo and things like that on the back of here that's disrupting the airflow for the cooling capacity of the inverter. So make sure that that is happening. Also, I want to note too that in this compartment, in this area, is not a storage compartment. There's a very, very high current power in here, so do not store things in here. This is not a storage compartment. This is where your lithium-ion batteries are housed in this area, and a lot of electrical components going into here. So please do not store anything in this area. Okay, so underneath the ottoman on the passenger side is where you're going to find your shutoff switches for your lithium batteries. So these shutoff switches are mounted on a silver plate and they have blue light rings around them. So if you see the blue light rings how they are right now, they are on solid and the lights are not flashing. So if the lights are flashing in this position, then the batteries will be charged at that point when the light rings are flashing. So if the light rings are solid as they are right now, they are not being charged and they are under a load state or just being on an idle state. So in long-term storage, what you want to do is you're going to want to push one of these switches in at a time and until the light ring goes out. So if you push the button in and hold it, the light ring will go off and that will shut down the batteries. So you want to do that on both of those switches, and that will be your long-term storage for your batteries. So if you're not going to be charging these batteries and they're just going to be sitting there for longer than 2 weeks at a time, then you want to shut those down, because what happens is your batteries will be consuming their own power because they have the Bluetooth capability and sending signals out for your battery monitor app. So make sure that if you're not being charged and long-term storage, make sure that these batteries are in the off position, and you do that by holding the button in until the light goes out. To turn the batteries back on, simply push and release the light, and then the ring around it will come back on solid. And if, like I said, if they start to flash, that's normal. That means the batteries are being charged at that point. And there you have it. There is the Strada models. So this is the lounge that I'm standing in, and I showed you the tour a little bit earlier. There is some differences between the two, but please subscribe to our YouTube channel and like this video.